3 new messages. My heart dropped. Unknown number. You always hesitate. It's why you miss things. But this time you can't afford to. I stared at the screen as a cold wave washed down my spine. My thumb hovered over the reply box. This wasn't some random prank, not anymore. Whoever this was, they knew something about me. Or they thought they did. A shaky breath escaped me. I typed, "Who are you?" But before I could hit send, another message arrived. Someone who remembers what you've forgotten. My fingers went numb. Forgotten? What was that supposed to mean? I'd never met anyone who would talk like that, not that I could recall. 1,000 possibilities rushed through me, none of them making sense. I forced myself to put the phone away and walked to the staff room in a daze, barely noticing the smell of burnt coffee or the hum of the old vending machine. My coworker Jonah looked up from his sandwich, eyebrows raised. "You okay, Lila? You look like you saw a ghost." "I'm fine," I lied, dropping into the chair across from him. "Just didn't sleep much." He shrugged and went back to scrolling his phone. I watched him for a moment, wondering what it felt like to live in a world where messages were just messages. Annoying, funny, forgettable. Not warnings, not this. The rest of my shift crawled by. Every time the bell over the door chimed, I jumped. Every passing face seemed like it might be watching me too closely. My thoughts kept circling back to the messages, each one tightening a coil of dread in my stomach. By the time I clocked out, the sun had already dipped behind the city buildings, painting everything in a gray-blue haze. I hugged my bag close to my body and hurried home, glancing over my shoulder more times than I'd like to admit. When I reached my apartment, I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, heart hammering. Marbles meowed, weaving around my legs, oblivious to the storm inside me. I finally checked my phone again. 1 new message. Just 3 words. "You're getting closer." I dropped the phone onto the couch, breathing hard. Closer to what? Or worse. Closer to who? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed with the lights on, listening to the old radiator groan and the distant hum of traffic below my window. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those words again. "You're getting closer." Closer to what? I kept turning the question over in my mind, hoping I'd accidentally find an answer. By morning, I felt stretched thin, like a thread pulled too tight. I dragged myself out of bed, fed marbles, brewed tea, and tried to behave as if everything was normal. But the tension clung to me like static electricity, buzzing beneath my skin. On my way to the bookstore, I kept catching glimpses of movement, reflections in windows, someone stepping behind a streetlight just as I looked up, the flash of a dark coat disappearing into an alley. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe my mind was cracking under the weight of paranoia. But the feeling didn't fade. When I arrived at work, I found the bookstore unusually quiet. The morning sun filtered through the front windows, dust dancing in the beams of light. It should have been peaceful. Instead, something felt wrong. Jonah wasn't behind the counter. The lights in the back office flickered like someone had been messing with them. And on the checkout desk, in the exact spot where I usually set down my bag, was a small folded piece of paper. My heart lurched. I glanced around, no customers, no sign of Jonah. The silence pressed in on me. With trembling hands, I picked up the paper and unfolded it. A single line stared back at me in that same strange handwriting I'd never seen before. "You walk past answers every day." A chill spilled down my spine. Someone had been in here. Someone had been close enough to leave this without anyone noticing. I forced myself to take a breath and scanned the store again. Nothing but stillness. A creeping dread tightened around me. But I knew I couldn't call the police. Not over anonymous messages and a note. They'd brush me off, say it was a prank. Still, I tucked the note into my pocket and walked slowly through the aisles, pretending to straighten books while my eyes searched every corner. Each rustle of pages, each creak of the old wooden floorboards made my heart spike. At noon, when Jonah finally showed up, I nearly jumped out of my skin. "Whoa," he laughed, hands raised. "Relax. It's just me." "You're late," I blurted, more sharply than I intended. He blinked. "Yeah, sorry, the bus broke down." I tried to read his face. Was he lying? Did he put the note there? But there was nothing suspicious in his expression, just mild confusion at why I looked like I'd been chased by ghosts. I wanted to tell him everything, but I didn't. I couldn't. Something told me this wasn't something I should drag anyone else into. Especially when another message buzzed on my phone right then. I didn't even have to look to know who it was. Don't trust familiar faces. My breath hitched, my skin went cold. Someone was watching me. Someone who knew where I worked. Someone who knew when I was alone. And suddenly the bookstore, once my only safe place, felt like a trap with no exits. By the end of that day, my nerves were frayed so badly that even the soft chime of the bookstore door felt like a threat. Every time a customer walked in, I caught myself studying their faces too long, searching for anything familiar. Eyes that lingered a second too much, a smile that didn't reach the eyes, someone pretending to browse while watching me through the reflection of a window. Nothing. Or maybe too many things. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. When my shift finally ended, I almost begged Jonah to walk home with me, but the message echoed in my mind like a warning siren. Don't trust familiar faces. So I forced a smile, told him I was fine, and stepped out into the cool evening air alone. The sun had dipped low, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple. Normally, the walk home felt harmless, even calming. Tonight, the streets felt different. Too quiet, too empty, like the whole city was holding its breath. Halfway down the block, I felt it. That prickling sensation at the back of my neck. That rare, unmistakable human instinct. The one that whispers, "You're not alone." I walked faster. My footsteps echoed against the pavement, sharp and uneven. Behind me, another set of footsteps followed. Soft, but there. I glanced over my shoulder. A figure stood across the street, partly hidden beneath a flickering street lamp. A black hood, hands in pockets, still as stone. Watching me, my pulse hammered so violently I tasted metal. I turned forward and walked faster, nearly tripping over a crack in the sidewalk. The footsteps behind me quickened too, matching my pace. I forced myself not to run. Running would confirm I'd noticed them. Running might make them chase. Instead, I turned sharply down the nearest side street, hoping to lose them. The alley was narrow, lined with overflowing dumpsters and broken fire escapes. A terrible idea. A stupid idea. But I didn't stop. Behind me, the footsteps followed. Panic surged. My breath came in short, sharp bursts as I scanned for somewhere to hide. A recessed doorway, a stairwell, anything. Then my phone buzzed. I nearly screamed. Hands shaking, I pulled it out. Unknown number. Don't panic, you're doing fine. My stomach dropped straight to the ground. They weren't just following me, they were communicating with me, as I walked. Another message arrived instantly. Left now. I hesitated only half a second before obeying, turning left into another narrow passageway between two apartment buildings. My fear outweighed my logic. I didn't know if the messages were guiding me or leading me into a trap, but the footsteps behind me sounded closer. I followed the message's direction again. Another buzz. Stop, he won't follow past this point. I froze. The footsteps halted behind me. For a moment, the world went silent except for my pounding heartbeat. Then slowly, deliberately, the follower turned around and walked away. I stood there trembling, pressed against a brick wall, feeling the cold evening air sting my lungs. Whoever was sending me messages, they didn't just know where I was. They knew where someone else I was too, and they were playing a game I didn't understand. For a long moment, I couldn't move. My legs felt hollow, my lungs scraped for air, and my thoughts scattered like marbles on a tile floor. The stranger who had followed me was gone, their footsteps fading into the distance, but the feeling of being hunted lingered, heavier than the night air. Eventually, I forced myself to move. I slipped out of the narrow passageway and made my way back to the main street, sticking close to the pools of light cast by storefronts and street lamps. Every time a car passed or someone rounded a corner, I flinched. My hands were still shaking when I finally reached my apartment building. Inside, I locked the door, slid the chain across, and pressed my forehead against the wood, trying to steady my breathing. Marbles brushed against my legs, purring, but even her warmth couldn't loosen the tight knot in my chest. I needed to calm down. I needed to think. But the moment I stepped into my living room, everything inside me froze. There on my coffee table was an envelope. Cream-colored, plain, thin, exactly like the one I'd found at the bookstore. No. My breath hitched painfully. I hadn't left anything on the table when I left for work. I knew that with absolute certainty. And I always locked my door. That meant someone had been inside. Recently. Maybe minutes ago. My skin prickled as I approached the envelope, each step slow and wary, like I was approaching an animal that might bolt or attack. The apartment felt too still, too quiet. I picked up the envelope. My name was written across the front again. Lila, in that same delicate, unfamiliar handwriting. For a second, I just held it, my heart thundering, my fingers trembling against the paper. A part of me wanted to throw it in the trash, pretend none of this was happening. But another part, the part that had obeyed the messages in the alley, needed answers. I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. A young girl, dark hair, big sad eyes, standing in front of a crumbling playground I'd almost forgotten existed. But the face hit me like a blow. It was me, at maybe 5 or 6 years old. Before I could process it, another piece of paper slipped out. A small square note with a line written in that same eerie handwriting. You look for danger, but you ignore memory. My knees nearly gave out. Why a childhood photo? Who had it? How did they get into my apartment? I stumbled backward, dropping the envelope onto the table. My thoughts tumbled over each other, sharp and frantic. Then my phone buzzed. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to know. But my gaze slid toward the screen anyway. Unknown number. Now you see how close I've always been. A second message followed immediately. Don't run, you'll only make it worse. My vision blurred. This wasn't randomness. This wasn't coincidence. Someone knew me, knew my past, my fears, my patterns. Someone had been watching for far longer than I realized. And for the first time, a thought flickered through my mind that terrified me more than anything else. What if the real danger wasn't the person following me in the street, but the one who claimed to be helping me? I didn't leave my apartment for almost an hour. I sat on the couch with the childhood photo in my hands, my thumb brushing over the faded corners like it might reveal something else if I touched it gently enough. The girl in the picture, me, stood alone on cracked pavement, a rusted swing set behind her. The place felt familiar in a distant, dreamlike way, like a memory buried so deep it blurred around the edges. I tried to recall when it was taken, who took it, why I was alone in it. But the harder I tried, the more my mind resisted, like pushing against a locked door. Another message arrived. You know this place. Go there. A wave of heat rushed through me. They wanted me to go, to walk into whatever trap they had planned. I typed out a reply before I could stop myself. Why? What do you want from me? Their answer came instantly. The truth. I slammed the phone down, frustration boiling in my chest. Truth? What truth? My childhood was ordinary, quiet, uneventful. Or at least, that's how I remembered it. But the photo said otherwise. And the way my stomach twisted every time I looked at it told me there was something I wasn't letting myself see. As the evening sank into night, the pressure grew unbearable. I couldn't stay. Not with the envelope on my table. Not with the knowledge someone had walked through my apartment like it belonged to them. So just after midnight, I grabbed my coat, stuffed the photo into the pocket, and left the building. The streets were empty, the city humming in that hush that only appears after most people have gone to sleep. I followed the path my feet remembered without my permission. Soon, I reached the old neighborhood, the one my dad never talked about, the one we moved away from when I was still a child. The playground sat in the center like a ghost. The swings rusted, the slide covered in graffiti. The fence bent in places like it had been forced open. My chest tightened. This was it. The place in the photo. I stepped closer, my shoes crunching over broken glass. A wind brushed my face, carrying with it a faint scent. Something floral, something oddly nostalgic. My fingers reached into my pocket, pulling out the photo again. A shout broke the silence. Hey, Lila! My entire body clenched. A figure stood at the entrance of the playground, hands raised. The dim streetlight behind him cast his face into shadow. Don't be afraid, he called softly. I'm trying to help you. My breath caught. I recognized that voice. It was from a memory I didn't realize I still carried, and a past I didn't know I had tried to forget. I froze. The man at the entrance of the playground stepped closer, the weak light finally revealing his features. His face was older, sharper, lined with tiredness, but his eyes, dark, intense, sparked a hint of recognition deep inside me. I didn't know him, and yet, something inside me whispered that I did. It's okay, he said, voice quiet, steady. I'm not here to hurt you. I backed up toward the rusted slide. Who are you? He hesitated, like he was choosing each word with care. My name is Rowan. Nothing, no spark of memory. But his expression told me he expected me to recognize it. You used to come here, he continued, nodding at the playground. Almost every day. You weren't alone. My throat tightened painfully. I don't remember that. He gave a slow nod. I know, they made sure you wouldn't. A chill rippled down my spine. Who is they? Rowan stepped closer. Your father, and hers. Hers? Before I could question it, Rowan reached into his coat and pulled out a small worn notebook. He held it out to me, letting me see the creased cover, the peeling edges. You left this with me, he said softly, the day you disappeared. My heart stopped. I never disappeared, I whispered, but the words felt weak, uncertain. You did, Rowan said. You were here one day, and the next your father took you away. New name, new life, new story. You never came back. I shook my head. No, my dad would never... Rowan interrupted gently. He didn't want you remembering what you saw. A hollow thud echoed in my chest. What did I see? My voice barely rose above a whisper. Rowan looked toward the edge of the playground, the broken fence, the one that had always looked mangled in the photo. You saw something you weren't supposed to, he said. Something that changed everything. I swallowed hard. What was it? Rowan's jaw clenched. I can't tell you, not yet. Not until you're sure you want to know. Once you hear it, you never go back. My breath trembled. Why contact me now? He paused. Because someone else found you first. My stomach dropped. The messages, I asked. His eyes darkened. Yes. And if they're reaching out, it means they're close to finding proof. Proof of what? Rowan stepped closer, lowering his voice. That your childhood wasn't what you think it was. And neither were the people raising you. The wind picked up, chilling my skin. Rowan's expression softened. I'm not your enemy, Lila. You came here because something inside you knew it was time. Another buzz from my phone made me jump violently. A new message. Rowan stiffened. Don't look at it. My hand trembled over my pocket. But the message had already appeared on the screen. Don't trust him. I looked up at Rowan. His face had gone pale. The air between us tightened like a wire ready to snap. Rowan's eyes flicked to my phone, then back to me, jaw tense. What did it say? He asked. I didn't answer. He stepped forward. Lila, listen to me. I stepped back. Did you break into my apartment? His mouth opened, but no words came out. That hesitation, tiny, barely even a breath, was enough to send my nerves into a freefall. You did, I whispered. That's not Lila, I was trying to protect you. By leaving envelopes, by stalking me? I wasn't stalking you. His voice cracked with frustration. Someone else was. I left the envelope because you needed to remember, before they made their move. A cold sweat coated my skin. Who are they? I demanded. Rowan exhaled shakily. Her family. The woman your father didn't want you remembering. My pulse hammered. Who was she? Rowan stared at me for a long, heavy moment, then pointed toward the broken fence. That's where she died. My breath stopped. A sharp metallic taste filled my mouth. Died? I managed. You saw it, Rowan said. When you were a kid. You and I, we were here, playing. Then she came looking for you. And his voice strained. Something happened. Something your dad didn't want getting out. The world tilted. My father wouldn't hurt anyone, I whispered, but the words wavered like they didn't believe themselves. Rowan shook his head. Not saying he did, but he knew what happened. He knew you saw it, and he knew you'd talk. You were just a kid. You didn't understand secrets. My lungs burned, struggling for air. Why can't I remember? Trauma, Rowan said simply. And what came after? A hissing gust of wind brushed past us, and for a second I swore I heard footsteps behind the fence. Rowan stiffened, turning his head sharply. We shouldn't stay here, he murmured. If they know you came back. My phone buzzed again. Rowan grabbed my wrist. Don't. But I pulled away and lifted the screen. The message read, He's lying. She didn't fall. My hands shook. What does it mean? I whispered. Rowan didn't answer. I looked at the broken fence again. Rusted, mangled, like something or someone had forced their way through. A cold realization crept up my spine. Rowan. I swallowed hard. Did you see what happened? His jaw tightened. Yes. Then tell me. His eyes softened. Lila, if I tell you, you'll never look at your life the same way again. Across the playground, a shadow slipped behind the swings. Someone else was here, watching. The messages were right about one thing. I wasn't getting closer to danger. Danger was getting closer to me. A sharp clang echoed from the swings, and my heart jolted so violently I felt dizzy. Rowan grabbed my arm, pulling me toward him. We have to go, he whispered fiercely. But my feet didn't move. The playground felt alive with tension, heavy, electric, like the air before a storm. I stared at the broken fence, and suddenly, the quiet night cracked open. A memory hit me like a lightning strike. A scream. A woman's voice. My own small hands gripping cold metal. Rowan yelling my name. The sound of something snapping. Then darkness. I stumbled backward, clutching my head as pain surged like fire behind my eyes. Lila! Rowan steadied me, voice tight with panic. Don't force it! But the memories poured in, unstoppable. I saw the woman's face. Not clearly, like viewing her through fogged glass, but I saw her reaching for me, calling something desperate. I remembered running, tripping, grabbing the fence. I remembered the woman collapsing, falling, pushed. I couldn't tell. Stop, I gasped, shaking. Please stop. Rowan pulled me against his chest, trying to hold me steady. I'm sorry. This is what I was afraid of. More footsteps, slow, heavy. Someone stepped out from behind the swings. My breath froze. A tall figure, hooded, hands at their sides, silent. Rowan moved in front of me. Stay behind me. The figure didn't speak. My phone buzzed. I lifted it with trembling fingers. He's not your protector. Another message came immediately after. Ask him where he was when she fell. Rowan's shoulders tensed. The hooded figure took a step closer. My voice shook as I whispered, Rowan, where were you? He didn't answer. The figure stepped closer again. Rowan's tone sharpened. Don't listen to them. They're twisting everything. My phone buzzed a third time. Ask him why your father moved you the next day. My heart felt like it was tearing itself apart. Rowan, I whispered, what really happened that night? The hooded figure lifted their hands, slowly, then pulled the hood down. A woman's face emerged, pale under the streetlight, eyes haunted and sharp. I know what you saw, she said, and I know what he did. Rowan stepped back, voice breaking. Lila, don't listen, she wasn't there. The woman took another step, gaze locked on me. I was her sister. My knees buckled. The dead woman's sister, the messages, the warnings, the envelope. It was her. Rowan's voice cracked with desperation. She's manipulating you. But for the first time, I wasn't sure who the manipulator really was. The playground was silent except for the wind rattling the rusted swing chains. Rowan stood rigid in front of me, his chest rising and falling in sharp, uneven breaths. The woman, pale, unwavering, took another step into the light, her eyes heavy with a grief that felt too real to fake. My sister didn't fall, she said quietly. Someone pushed her. And you... She looked at Rowan. We're the last person with her. My heart hammered so painfully it hurt to breathe. Rowan shook his head slowly. You weren't there. You didn't see. Lila listened to me. But the woman's gaze locked on mine. You remember more than you think. The final memory surged forward with brutal clarity. The woman, laughing softly as she reached for me. Rowan standing behind her, tense. A shout. A shove. The woman screamed, tearing through the air, her body hitting the fence, collapsing to the ground. I gasped, staggering back. Rowan's face went white. No, he whispered. No, Lila, that's not. You pushed her. My voice shook uncontrollably. You pushed her. Rowan's mask cracked completely then, fear, regret, rage flashing all at once. She was going to take you, he shouted. She wasn't stable. She didn't want you with your father. She wanted to run. I was trying to protect you. The woman's voice rose, trembling with fury. You murdered her! Rowan's eyes snapped to her. I saved the kid. You weren't there. You don't know what she was about to do. Everything inside me twisted. My lungs felt too small. My vision blurred with tears. I backed away from them both. Rowan stepped toward me. Lila, your father knew. He hid it to protect you. To protect us both. That's why he moved you. You can't let her twist this. My phone buzzed one last time. I looked down. Now you remember. The woman swallowed hard. Your father didn't move you to protect you. He moved you to protect him. And him. She pointed at Rowan. Rowan's jaw clenched. Lila, please. No, I whispered. Stay back. My legs trembled as I stepped out of the playground, the childhood photo crushed in my fist. Where are you going? Rowan called, voice cracking. Somewhere you can't follow. The woman didn't try to stop me. She just watched with a sorrow so deep it hollowed her eyes. Before I left, she said softly, You're not in danger anymore. You're just finally free. But as I walked into the night, heart shredded, world unraveling, I realized something terrifying. Freedom wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning.